At Grand Canyon National Park. I've been working in the national park hospitality industry for over 15 years, commercial services, business development, revenue collection positions within the National Park Service, Grand Canyon, Zion National Park, Arches National Park, Everglades, Dry Tortugas, Grand Teton, and I've worked for concessioners as a tour guide in Yellowstone and Ring of St. Elias National Parks. Ring of St. Elias is up in Alaska. So it's a pleasure to be with you today.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you, Raquel and Holly and everyone at Change Labs for having us. Again, my name is Larry Glickman, and thank you for the introduction, Raquel. And you just met Kelkiana and Phil here from Grand Canyon. I just wanted to briefly or quickly mention we have a couple other people on our team that aren't here today. Grace Lilly is one of our permit specialists in our program, and she works with the special park uses. And then our permit assistant, Celia Dubin, is invaluable to making our whole program function. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. And if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I just wanted to go over the agenda. So we're going to go over the what, the who, and the why you need a commercial use authorization, a CUA. What activities are currently authorized? How much does a CUA cost? What can you do? Where can you go with a CUA? And the application process. And as we go through this, as Raquel mentioned, please do put your questions in the chat. We will address those at the end. However, some questions can go down into some deep detail, and so we will plan on to do that at the end of the presentation. And next slide, please. So what is a CUA? It authorizes someone to provide a commercial visitor service in parks. And that's everything from tour operators, guided services, those types of activities. And the next slide. So you need a CUA, a commercial use authorization, if the activity or the service takes place in the park, uses park resources, and results in some sort of monetary gain for you. So if you're making any kind of profit doing business in the park, you do need a commercial use authorization. And these are different from a concessions contract. I'm not going to go into details with those. But yes, so if you're conducting business in a park and you're making a profit off of that visitor service, you need a commercial use authorization. And next slide, please, Raquel. So why do you need a CUA? Basically because the law tells us you do. That's government for you. So we have to follow law, regulation, and policy, which outlines how we conduct the CUA program at Grand Canyon and park-wide throughout the United States. In all national parks, all CUA programs should be managed the same way, ideally, and the Park Service is actually working on standardizing the CUA process, the application process, application fees, things of that nature, which we'll get into in a little bit. Yes, here it is. Thank you. Yep, why you need a CUA. Yep. And so, so it's important that you have one. We try to be very transparent with the CUA process through the law, regulation, and policy. And we can share that information if you want to go into the details with that. But yeah, that's why you need a CUA, is because the law says so. And the next slide, please. So what can you do at Grand Canyon? We, in 2025, we are going to expand the CUA activities into 8 activities, which we'll get into. But before that, next slide, please. Before we do that, we just wanted to touch base on vending and food trucks. These are two activities that we currently do not authorize under a CUA, but there's been a lot of interest expressed in vending and in food trucks. We do have information that we'll be able to provide with vending that is currently going on in the park through the demonstration program out at Desert View, but with a partner organization with NACA, there is vending taking place in the park as well. So we do have an avenue for that. It's not through the CUA system, but there are opportunities for that. Food trucks are kind of a bigger issue, and we can go into more details with that if folks have questions about that. But I just wanted to touch base that we can talk about those later on, because they have been a lot of interest as it has been expressed in providing food trucks in Grand Canyon. We just do not have that as an authorized service at the moment. But what we do have, next slide, please, Raquel. Oops. Yeah. So one of the ones that we have is backcountry hiking. This is both backpacking, overnight backpacking, and day hiking. So these are trips with a guide that will take you into the canyon. And we have about 70 or so companies that provide this service. Some of them are regularly occurring. There's the Wildland Trekking Company, there's Four Season Guides, to name a couple. But a lot of them come from all over the place. But this is any type of guided hiking below the rim. Again, whether it's a day hike or overnight hike, we have a commercial use authorization for that. And then next slide, please. And bicycle tours, guided bicycle tours, another visitor activity that is authorized. Most of these are actually larger park-wide, visiting multiple parks. Grand Canyon happens to just be one of the parks on their route itinerary. So some of them do not actually spend the night in the park, they're just riding through. But some of them do have Grand Canyon as a destination. And we only have, I think, 5 or 6 of those. A couple of them are based in Flagstaff. Others come from other parts of the country. And as I say, they're part of a larger tour that's coming through Grand Canyon. And then next slide, please. Photography and art workshops. This is not setting up a stand like on the South Rim with a sign that's like, "Go get your picture taken for $20 at Grand Canyon." It's not tourist photos. They're actually workshops that focus on the natural and cultural history of the park through photography and art, painting, other activities. But the intention is improving the participant's skill in photography, painting, whatever the art is that you're doing. But the focus is on instruction and having the Grand Canyon as the backdrop for that instruction. Again, it's not just selling photos in the park. And then next, please. River equipment rental and delivery. This is a very specific type of CUA that we have. This is for people who have obtained a non-commercial river permit to float the Colorado River through the canyon. So let's say you and your friends have obtained a ticket, or excuse me, a permit to float the river on your own, but you don't have any gear. So we have CUAs that will rent that gear for you. And it's everything from, if you just need a spoon or a cooler, to everything like boats, gear, first aid kits, food menus, everything. The reason that we have a CUA for this is for the safety of visitors. The CUA has conditions in there regarding the quality of the equipment, inspection of the equipment. So we want to, if an outside entity is providing this type of equipment, we want to make sure that it's safe. Also, some of these companies also do provide shuttle services as well for folks that might, for a trip that has a passenger exchange. So they do come into the trip as well, or into the park, excuse me, as well. But there's only 5 of these. 4 of them are in Flagstaff, and then there's another one in Colorado. Next slide. Yep, road-based commercial tours. So these are your road-based tours with a focus on leisure and recreational activities, learning about the park that way. This is Pink Jeep Tours, Buck Wild Hummer, the large tour buses that come into the park. So you're visiting the park typically by vehicle, getting out at viewpoints, walking around a little bit above the rim. But those are road-based commercial tours, and we have hundreds of those. These are the majority of our CUA holders do conduct road-based tours. And then next slide, please. And transport non-tour. So road-based commercial tours and the transport non-tour, those are new activities for 2025, or I should say new categories. We currently have a road-based tour transportation CUA that covers road-based tours and non-tour activities. For 2025, we're splitting those out into 2 separate CUAs. So they're not necessarily new activities, they're just new CUA categories. And so transportation non-tour is just that. They're shuttle services, essentially. Some of them could be motor coach charter services, but the majority of them are shuttle services, such as Trans-Canyon Shuttle, such as Groom Transportation, rim-to-rim shuttle services. There's a big need for that. And so we do have a CUA for that activity because they are, even though it's not a tour, they are conducting business within the park. And thank you. And finally, 2-week tours. This is the remote area on the northwest side of the park. This one has its own separate CUA because there are very specific management objectives that the park tries to manage for out at 2 weeks. So we do have a specific CUA for that. 2-week tours only allows you out to 2 weeks, and it is a road-based tour, but it's specific to the 2-week area. If you wanted to also, let's say, day hike or backpack, go below the rim out at 2 weeks, you would need that 2-week tour CUA and a backcountry hiking CUA, for example, if you wanted to do multiple activities out there. And so those are the activities, and we can go into those in more detail at the end with questions and such. But the big question a lot of people have is, how much does a CUA cost? What's all involved on obtaining a CUA? So next slide, please, Raquel. So the first thing is an application fee. Currently, the National Park Service for 2025, all activities are $350 for the first CUA and $250 for each additional CUA at that same park. However, it's what's new for road-based commercial tours and the transport non-tour CUA, that will not get standardized until 2026. So for the 2025 calendar year, we have our same application fee as it's been for the last several years, which is $300 for a road-based commercial tour or transport non-tour CUA. So the first thing is the application fee, which is due at the time that you submit your application. And then the next slide, there's also a management fee. Right now, this applies to all CUA activities except for road-based commercial tours. So everything else, backcountry hiking, bike tours, photo and art workshops, etc., those are assessed a management fee, which is based on the annual report. We won't go into the nitty-gritty with that, but there is a management fee. The average CUA holder has paid about $1,200 in management fees. We have several CUA, we have a few CUA holders that their management fees are in the $80,000 to $90,000 range. I did not include that in this average because those other ones are they're international companies essentially. So they do trips, and they do a lot of trips in the park. So they generate a lot of revenue, but those ones are outside the norm. But for all the others, it's about $1,200, and a lot of our CUA holders don't pay a management fee because they actually haven't done a lot of business in the park either. But that's something to consider when you're assessing, making your business plan. And then the next slide, please. The entrance fee that is included. So everyone has to pay an entrance fee. The large tour buses pay a flat fee of $300 for the entrance fee. All the other types of activities, it's based on the vehicle size. And almost all the CUA holders, all the companies just include that they account for that entrance fee and the tour fee that they assess to their clients. So the entrance fee, it depends on the type of vehicle you're in and the type of tour you're doing. We are working closely with the fees group on getting more clarity and standardizing the entrance fees for the different types of CUAs. So, but right now that information is on the park website, and we can provide that for you as well. But at most, it would be $300 if you're coming in a large tour bus. Next, yep. And then, so you also need insurance. All CUAs, for the most part, are required to have commercial general liability insurance. The minimum is $500,000. Grand Canyon requires $1 million per occurrence, and that is an average of about $69 a month, or about $825 a year. It's hard to pin that down because that is also based on the type of activity you are doing, and your own, how long you've been in business for, your own history as well, as to what that policy will cost you. If you are transporting clients in your vehicle, you will also need automobile insurance. And this is based on the size of the vehicle. It's either going to be $1.5 million or $5 million per occurrence. And the average is $574 a month, or almost $7,000 a year. So you'd want to account for that when you're figuring out your tour fees. And again, what the policy costs are depends again on how long you've been in business for, how new or old is your vehicle, your own driving record, the driving record of employees and things like that. So this is just an average, but it could be more than that, and possibly less. And then next slide. So with all those fees that are known, you're looking at a little over $9,000 just to get started. But then there's all the other things, supplies, equipment, gas for your vehicle, vehicle maintenance, Are you providing food or water bottles, things of that nature? So there's a lot of unknowns as well to getting started with that. But once you have an idea of what you're planning on, as you're developing a business plan, you'll get a better idea of how much something like this might cost. And then next slide. So what can you do with your activities and where can you go? So all the CUAs have specific conditions as to where you can go and what you can do, what roads you can go on, group size limits, locations. Some areas you can do photography and art workshops, but you can't do them out of the TUI area. So all those things of what you can do are in the CUA conditions. And then the next slide, please, Raquel. And then where can you go? Again, these are all spelled out in the CUA conditions. For the most part, in general, wherever the general public can go, the CUA holders can go. If you're doing backcountry hiking, whether it's day hiking or backpacking, you can pretty much go on any of the official trails in the park. Paved roads are for the most part authorized, but again, as you're developing a business plan, you can always review the CUA conditions, which are on the website. You can also provide those copies for you, and those will describe where you can and cannot go. And then the next slide. So the application process for 2025, all CUA applications will be through the new online system. We started using it in 2024 for all of our activities except for the road-based activities. Those ones were not set up to use the online system. In 2025, that will be set up. So every type of CUA at Grand Canyon that you are going to apply for is going to be through this online system. What's nice about it is once you're in the system, can you go to the next slide, please? So it's so there's a login.gov account that you'll create. You'll upload a copy of your insurance certificate. We have an operating plan that you will fill out describing what you're going to do, where you're going to go, how often you're going to come to the park. Do you come year round? Do you come seasonally? There's an acknowledgement of risk. If you use one, they are not required. But if you do have your clients sign an acknowledgement of risk, you need to provide a copy of that. And the Park Service actually has a template. If you've never written one before, we can provide you with that template. And then some of the activities do require a guide registration form. The backcountry hiking, the bicycle tours, and TUI all require a guide. Let's see. I think those are the three that require a guide registration form off the top of my head. You don't need them for photo art workshops. You don't need them for our road-based commercial tours. You don't need them for the river equipment rental. But backcountry hiking, bike tours, and TUI, we do request a guide registration form. And then next slide up. So we will begin accepting applications for 2025 on October 1st. And we will accept applications through March 31st. So we accept applications for 6 months. And again, for road-based commercial tours and transport, that application fee is only going to be $300 for 2025. Everything else, all the other activities, will be $350 for the first application at Grand Canyon. And then if you're applying for multiple activities, it's $250 for each additional application in that same calendar year. Oh, and then we do require, oops, sorry, and then this might be cut off, like maybe it's not. Can you all see that last line, 45 days to process a complete application package? So you want to plan accordingly. And it's not 45 days from the date that we receive the application. It's 45 days from the date that you have submitted all the required materials. So some of them we get done in a few days because everything was submitted quickly. Others, it takes months because we are not getting the required documentation and information that we need. So it's really up to the applicant to make sure that they submit everything in a timely manner and plan accordingly, so we can get that CUA issued to you before you start your trips. And next, so this might be hard to see, but this is what an issued commercial use authorization looks like. This is the part that you would need to print out. You'll get this in an email. It has a summary of the authorized activities, your company's name. It has the permit number or the CUA number, the authorization and expiration dates. So for 2025, those will all be authorized. The earliest would be January 1st, 2025, and they will all expire December 31st, 2025, and then you'd have to apply again for 2026. So these will all be one-year CUAs. It has some specific information and guidance on there under the additional comments. And then in the email that you receive has a copy of all the CUA conditions in the email. You do not have to print that out, but you are responsible for making sure that you and all of your employees that are coming into the park are aware of the CUA conditions. And it is your responsibility as the CUA holder to make sure that they comply with the CUA conditions. We do track violations of the conditions, and that can, multiple violations could result in the suspension or even the revocation of a CUA. So, and it's our expectation that all CUA holders comply with the CUA conditions. And for the most part, we don't have any issues with the majority of our CUA holders. Everyone's, for the most part, pretty good. There's always a few bad apples. And then, so we have some resources here. The QR codes actually will take you to those specific websites. So regarding law, regulation, and policy, Chapter 11 of the Commercial Services Guide, that's the CUA guidance that we use. So whenever we have questions that come up about management of the CUA program, we go to this Chapter 11 of the guide. That's kind of our Bible. All of the CUA information is on the park website regarding on the activities, the CUA conditions, application instructions. There's some frequently asked questions on there as well. The National Park Service CUA website has general information that applies to all national parks and to all CUA holders. And then the online system, the CUA application and reporting system. There's actually a video about the system on how to apply, how to use the system. And that QR code and that link will take you to that as well. And you can always reach out if you go to the, and we can go back to that slide again, but you can also reach out to us on the permits email, and we'll have that information. Raquel has that information also, so you can reach out directly to us with questions. But that's it for the presentation.
And yeah, Larry, if you don't mind me adding.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to mention that the Commercial Use Authorization Program within Grand Canyon National Park is a pretty large program. Grand Canyon National Park on any given year gets about 5 million visitors or so. This program is serving about 500,000. So about 10% of the park's visitors see the park in some manner through the commercial use authorization program. So it's a huge resource for us. This is also an opportunity for a lot of interpretation on the park. Telling stories about the park, and we want to have we want to have as diversified storytelling in the park as we can. And so we want to invite you to come in if you're interested in any of these activities, and and participate in that that environment. We want an influx of new stories, new viewpoints coming into the park. And I just want to mention that, like, one of the neat things about the commercial use authorization program is that anybody can apply. So Larry's kind of gone through the various requirements, but once you meet those requirements, anybody can come in and apply to the commercial use authorization program. And we're also, I think one of the things that we're looking forward to about this this presentation and being here at Change Labs in Tuba City is to have some conversations and to kind of understand, obviously, if there's any questions about Larry's presentation, but if there's new potentially new business ideas or opportunities that folks might be interested in, we can always look at those and see if that kind of fits into kind of the park business environment. So we're definitely looking forward to discussions after this presentation.
You want to add anything, Elkie?
Yeah, so I don't know if people can hear me. I don't have a mic.
Oh.
Oh, no, it's okay.
No. You can smile.
Yeah, so I work as the tribal program coordinator for Grand Canyon National Park. Grand Canyon has been a national park since 1919, so over 100 years. And this is really important to involve more tribal representation in the park because it's been absent from Grand Canyon for so long, even though that has been the home to 11 associated tribal nations since time immemorial. And so, yeah, I just really encourage you to look more into these opportunities. Larry mentioned the vending program. We're going to leave some brochures here at Change Labs in Tuba City, and there's various opportunities to like sell arts and crafts. So even if it's not yourself, maybe you have family members who are interested in these different types of programs that we have at Grand Canyon. That's one of the park's priorities, is more authentic, respectful Indigenous representation in the park through various ways, such as what Larry just talked about, as well as the vending and like food truck opportunities and things like that. So yeah, just feel free to reach out to us. And if you have any questions now, Phil, Larry, myself should be able to answer them.
Thanks. Yeah, so it looks like there's some questions in the chat. Yeah. Oh, let's see. Oh, I can. Oh. Let's see what we have. Do they allow advertising businesses in the park? We do not. That's actually part of the law, regulation, and policy. Is advertising. We actually had an issue with that last year. The reason being it gives an unfair advantage to the companies that are not advertising, and we cannot show any favoritism of one business over another. So there's no advertising in the park. However, you can advertise on social media. You can have a website. You can have flyers around town, just not inside the park itself.
And to add to that, on our website, we've got a list of all of the authorized commercial use authorization holders. So if anybody's ever looking for a service provider, they can go online, kind of see who's available, see what they do. Also in this brochure that Larry kind of introduced, that has some, it basically talks about the commercial services program. It's got contacts for the tribal liaison, buyers for, handicraft for the three big concessioners, within Grand Canyon National Park. You could always reach out to, to those concessioners, and you're free to work with any of the, concessioners in the park hospitality businesses to build, any kind of like partnership. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Feel free to reach out to any of the concessioners inside the park. The big hospitality providers are Santera, Delaware North, and Aramark. You're welcome to partner with them and whatever way works for your business.
They can't just have your brochures on their counter, though. That would be considered advertising.
Right.
Next question. What do you require to do videography in a national park? Independent filmmakers, not Hollywood. And since I'm Navajo and natives have free access to national parks, do native filmmakers get some kind of discount? So regarding filming, that is a different program. That is, filming is considered a special park use. And so filming actually has a specific special use filming permit. It is not considered a commercial visitor service. And our public affairs office manages all filming. And there is a lot of that, documentaries, movies, all sorts of things that occur, but that is through our public affairs office. And we can get that contact information for you if you wanted to reach out to them.
Yeah, and that's also available on our website. It's called Commercial Filming. It's part of the special use permit program in the park. And there's kind of some frequently asked questions about commercial filming in there. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think the legislative environment has actually gotten a little bit easier, recently for kind of independent filmmakers, small production projects to basically, film in the park commercially. So we encourage you to check that out. There's definitely, plenty of opportunities there.
Yep. And the permit also, it depends on the type of equipment. If you're just out there, filming something on your iPhone, oftentimes you do not need a permit for that kind of thing. But our public affairs office would be able to provide very specific information and correct me if I said something incorrect.
Yeah, they probably won't approve any use of drones. So
yeah.
I'll just kind of throw that out there right now.
Yeah. What is the name of the tribal program coordinator? Kelkiana?
So she Kelkiana Yazi Nashia, but Nishlan look at the Napashchin, Ilagana Dashache, Tabaha, Tashanale. So I'm part of the tribal program team at Grand Canyon National Park. It's myself and my colleague Vincent Diaz, who is Wallapai tribal member. And our tribal program works with the 11 associated tribes to support various projects in the park, one being tribal economic development. Even though the park borders several reservations, including Navajo Nation, a lot of that financial revenue from the tourism goes to the park. But that's a big part of why we're here today, is to help bring that financial revenue to the tribal communities, including the Navajo Nation. And one of the programs highlighted on here is the cultural demonstration program. We just celebrated the 10-year celebration. It's where community members go to the Desert View Watchtower on the east end of the park near Cameron, Arizona. And the park pays for the lodging, for the gas. They give you an honorarium, and you can even sell your crafts at Desert View. And that program, within 10 years, has contributed over $1 million to tribal communities. So so we're really trying to help again, share that revenue that Grand Canyon makes from tourism with the various tribal nations. So yeah, you can get involved in various ways. And I'm interested to hear about how participants want to get engaged with the park, like what type of businesses that you have, or what kind of business ventures you want to get into if you were to bring that to Grand Canyon.
Thank you. And then someone asked, and what my last name is. It's Glickman. I put that in the chat. So my full name's in there. And then what specific types of businesses or services are currently in the highest demand within national parks? That is a good question. What's interesting with CUAs and the business opportunities, in general for Grand Canyon, I would say rim-to-rim services are a very big need. There's only a couple CUA holders doing that. One of the biggest one, is on a very scheduled service going from North Rim to South Rim and vice versa. But there aren't that many that you can call and just coordinate a specific date or time to pick you up. So I would say that's a high demand at Grand Canyon. But in general, the CUA program isn't necessarily looking for business opportunities. CUAs are considered an appropriate type of service, but it's not a necessary type of service. Whereas a concessioner like Xanterra, all of your food and beverage services in national parks, those are considered appropriate and necessary. So things that the Park Service would consider a necessary service, those are the kinds of things that they will intentionally reach out for and request proposals to fulfill those services. But for commercial use authorizations, it's not the same case. So it really just depends on finding a visitor service niche that that you might identify or hear about, that visitors might be complaining, oh, I wish there was I wish there were more, I wish this park had horseback riding, something like that. Or I wish, it would be great to have a guided bike ride, which we have, but, maybe other parks do not. So it's hard to say what is the type of businesses that are highest in demand. It depends on the park, but for Grand Canyon, as I say before, just rim to rim shuttle services. But anything that has the first person, First Peoples, Indigenous voices, we don't have anything like that. So just having a native owned tour business, giving the history of Grand Canyon from that perspective, that's not happening right now.
Larry, and I'll just jump in here, and some of our more popular types of services, we have a lot of lodging that that occurs in the park. We have over 1,000 lodging rooms between the North Rim and the South Rim, so that's big business in the park. Food and beverage services, you come into Grand Canyon and you got to eat somewhere, right? So that's a pretty big service. When we talk about concession contracts, these are longer term business agreements that we have. We can provide a link, kind of as an addendum to this presentation that talks about how to bid on concession contracts. There's a little more to do as far as like financial commitment, showing business history, and stuff like that. But there's basically a website that advertises all business opportunities in Grand Canyon National Park and and all of the service, and we can provide a link to that. And if you're ever interested in, concession opportunities, you can see, what's up for bid, currently, and kind of what some of those, requirements are. Yeah. And then just to echo what Larry was saying, I think that, a lot of people, they come to Grand Canyon, it's a different environment maybe than they've ever been in their life. Like if you're got somebody, they're coming from Florida or Europe or, the Pacific Southwest, or something like that. I mean, this could be a really different environment. They've never been here before, and so I think just visitor orientation, that visitor, education. These are services that are always going to be in demand. In Grand Canyon, as people come out here, and maybe they've kind of got a general idea of a few things that they want to do, but they may not have an itinerary for like a whole week, or for multiple days. And I think that's kind of where the local community and these guide services can really provide a lot of value to visitors.
Yep, thanks for that. Let's see. So there's a follow-up to the video. So if someone was to do a video promotion for a business, do I have to go through the public affairs office? So again, I would go through public affairs just to double check. But in general, if you're like in the park and you're just taking, it's essentially personal photos and video. If you're using it for advertising for your business, the NPS position is, we can't control what you're doing with your own photos and videos. But if it's for your own business advertising, typically that is an okay kind of thing to do. But I would still follow up with our public affairs office just to make sure.
Yeah. Reach out to them. They can give you a lot of good feedback. Some things require a permit, some things don't require a permit. But even if you have to get a permit, it's generally, not too complicated. Certainly not more than, getting a CUA. Generally, the requirements are kind of equal to what Larry just went over, or less than what you need for a CUA.
Yeah. And we keep on saying, contact this department or that department. Raquel just put in the permits, our CUA email address. So you can start there with us. And then we'll direct you to the appropriate contact folks. Just so you don't have like 500 different email addresses and such. So you can always start with us at the BRCA_permits_mail.
Yeah, these are good questions. I know we're maybe a little over time, but I'm enjoying answering them. Do we have some time for some more questions?
There's one more, or a couple. So is Glen Canyon accepting CUA applications? That I do not know. You can look on their website. They do have a CUA application process. I do not know what activities are authorized at Glen Canyon. But if you Google Glen Canyon Commercial Services or Glen Canyon CUA, that should take you pretty close to the contact information.
Yeah, I think we should be able to provide a link, kind of as some follow-up to this meeting.
Yep.
And although there may be a few things that are different within their process, we're trying to get as consistent across different NPS entities, as we can. So the process for applying for CUA in Glen Canyon should be pretty similar to what Larry just presented.
Yep. They're all in 2025. All national parks are required to use that online application system. So, and what's nice about the application system is once your information is in there, it's in there. So in 2026, when you go to reapply or apply for another CUA, you just open up your account, and all your information is in there. You just update, whatever contact information, update, the required documents. But it's not like you're having to start all over again with a new form.
Yeah, it's a good time to start your CUA career, so to speak, as the paperwork process is going to be less cumbersome than it ever has.
Mhm. Yep. And let's see. Okay, the difference between using the top of the line cell phone to capture video and larger Pro Super Scope setup. Both can shoot the same quality. Again, that's going to be a public affairs because they are the experts on all the minutia of the of filming in the parks. And it's not, I don't think it's no longer called commercial filming. It's just filming. Any kind of videography may require a permit, and part of it is the equipment. Is it something you can just carry on your own, or is it, does it involve some setup? And they have the expertise to answer those kind of specific questions. What I can tell you is if you are using any kind of model or prop, you definitely do need a permit for that. That would be one of the filming special use permits, but even still photography, if you have a model or a prop, you will need a permit for that. What you do not need a permit for is just if you're a portrait photographer and you get hired by someone, can you take, our graduation picture at the Grand Canyon, and you're a professional photographer, you don't need a permit for that. If someone wants, wedding photos, quinceañeras, all sorts of events that are personal events, and you want a professional photographer, you don't need a special permit or CUA or anything like that to do that kind of portrait photography. Again, and that's different from having a sign, oh, get their picture taken for $20.
Yeah, basically, there's a lot of different, kind of little details and in the commercial or in the photography filming, questions. So we'll just we'll provide those resources, for you, and feel free to reach out to us, as well. And even though it might not be our department, we'll be happy to kind of help facilitate those conversations with others in the park so that we can make sure your questions get answered.
Yep. Can CUAs be renewed? So they are not renewed. You have to reapply for them, and there's no guarantee. If you had a CUA before and you reapply, depending on what was happening with your previous CUA, you may not be issued a CUA. So let's say you had a CUA issued in 2025, and there's a lot of violations, a lot of issues. You're not submitting required documents at the end of the year. You didn't pay your management fees that were due. You would not be, you may not, in general, you may not be allowed to reapply, apply for the next year's CUA. It's case by case.
I think the bottom line is that if your CUA is in good standing, and we're still offering that, a CUA for the activity that you're interested in, then as long as you submit the required paperwork, you're going to be good to go. We don't have any limits on CUAs currently. That could change in the future, but we don't have any plans, for the next couple of years. So yeah. As long as you're in good standing, you submit the paperwork that you're supposed to submit, you can generally get a CUA, year after year.
Yeah. And CUAs, the maximum issuance is 2 years. We were doing 2-year CUAs in 2023. We are going back to 1-year CUAs. Most parks are doing 1-year CUAs. So yeah, just every year you just reapply.
Yeah, and when we talk about 1 year versus 2 year CUAs, that's just the application window. So for right now, we would just say just plan on checking in every October to either, reapply or to update your application.
Yeah, exactly.
And before that application period opens up, Larry sends out a correspondence to everybody. We also post information on our website that describes the process for the next year.
Yeah. And then it looks like the last comment, and then this is back to the video stuff, which is great. I'd love to discuss this with the department in charge of video. It would be a good debate. And what they're referring to is, I think, the quality of video, using a top of the line cell phone and a top of the line camera. Again, I think it comes down to what is the video being used for, and not so much the quality of the equipment. It's like the size of the equipment. If you've got multiple cameras and huge tripods and booms and things like that, and sound and things, that is more intrusive than someone just taking video with their cell phone on a selfie stick or something like that. But again, there is guidance on that. And it just depends on what the use is for, and with the decision tree, if a permit would be needed or not for that.
Yeah, I appreciate all the questions about commercial filming, and and like we said before, we'll put some resources in here after after the presentation, and maybe we can get with Raquel maybe even afterwards to see if it might be worth kind of doing a follow-up, bringing our commercial filming, department, kind of in here to, be able to answer these questions, in a little more detail. I think kind of going back to Kalkiana's, question about, things that, folks are interested in, it sounds like, the filming is kind of a popular question. So we'll try to provide some, some more resources, and we'll talk about, maybe if it's worth kind of doing a follow-up, just on that topic alone.
Great. And one last one with a smiley face emoji. What are some of the key challenges you've noticed that entrepreneurs have faced when applying for a CUA? And that is being prepared, having everything in line before applying. Reach out to us before applying with questions as well, especially before you make any kind of payment. Reach out to us to make sure you're applying for the correct type of CUA. You're applying for the correct activity that you want to do. Making sure that your insurance is okay. You can ask all those questions before you even apply, just so when you do apply, everything is ready to go. So it's a lot of preparation beforehand. That's the biggest thing. And then be timely with your responses. We try to be very timely reviewing applications and responding back to applicants if something is missing. Maybe it's not enough insurance. Maybe they forgot to submit the operating plan, whatever it is. We try to respond pretty quickly with what's needed, and then it's up to the applicant to respond in a timely manner, and many don't, and they will wait months and months. And then, it's March 30th, the day before the last day to apply, and then they're coming back with questions. So just, be prepared, be early, and ask questions.
And I'll add to that once you get your CUA, and you're operating, some of the issues that we run into is when folks, generally the person who applied for the CUA, reads everything, has a pretty good understanding of what the CUA conditions are, what the operating requirements are, where you can drive, where you can park, what trails you can go on, how many people you can have, so on and so forth. Sometimes we see that maybe somebody gets a new guide, or something like that, and they maybe don't have as good of an understanding. And so, we would just encourage, like once you get a CUA, you're operating, just to make sure that you have, good training programs, where you can ensure that your employees are, fully aware of the CUA conditions, because if they do something wrong, then that can kind of have a negative impact on, on your, your CUA basically. And so that's something that we always encourage, and it's also something that Larry and the CUA team, Celia, have been working on. We're starting to put on some trainings, in the spring, where we, kind of go over, some of these things. But yeah, ultimately just would encourage everybody just to make sure that everybody in the organization is just really up to speed.
Yep. Yeah, that's the post issuance biggest issue is compliance with the CUA conditions. Yeah. Yep. And it looks like that is the last of the questions that I see, Raquel.
Do we have any in the room, or? Okay.
Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time and participation. And we'll work with Raquel about getting some of these other resources and websites to you. But the Grand Canyon National Park CUA website that we showed earlier, that is a good place to start as well. Just getting to the park's website there.
Really appreciate everybody taking the time,
Yep.
and yeah, we're hoping to see some more CUA applications from the the tribes associated, communities associated with Grand Canyon National Park.
Yep.
So yeah, we're really looking forward to working
Yep.
with you
Yep.
in the future. Reach out to Larry if you have any questions,
Yep.
or Kalkiana about the parks tribal affairs program.
Yep. Yep. And we will be updating the Grand Canyon CUA website in the coming weeks with the application information for the fall, for October. So keep checking that. And you should see some web updates in a couple weeks now, or early August, or well, next week is early August, isn't it?
Yeah,
Holy
the year's going
Yeah.
by fast.
Yeah.
Well,
So
and I'm wondering, if folks that may be interested in receiving any email updates from us, like if we can get that information from from Raquel, and we could just maybe add that to our our email list, so we can make sure. I mean, definitely check our website, but we could also add you to the email list, and when we publish this material, make sure that you get it.
Yep. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.
All
Thanks for
right.
having us.
Wonderful. Thank you. So, similar to today, we have another 90-minute workshop coming up. But first of all, thank you all for so much for being here today for this presentation. If you missed any part of it, please don't worry. We are recording, and we will have it up on our YouTube channel very soon as we get the editing done. And then and you can watch all of our past workshops on the YouTube channel as well. I have everyone's email if you had registered, and I can send that reminder of when we have it available on our YouTube channel if you'd like. You can just drop it in the chat if you want to be notified, and so you can rewatch this video, especially with all the prior information that we shared at the beginning of the workshop. I know some of us had jumped on a little bit later after we started. But next week, July 31st, starting at 11:30 to 1 p.m. This will be hybrid as well. We have our very own Slavosky Little doing another session. He'll be covering essential banking practices to help you meet your business and financial goals. Some of the topics that he'll be covering will be business accounts, merchant services, and cash management. And then his participants will learn how to select the best bank account and discover banking solutions that best suit your growth, your business's growth. The session will be held both virtually and in person in Tuba City at our Asia Hub here, similar to our setup today. For questions, you can contact hello@nativestartup.org. And don't forget to check out our past workshops on our YouTube channel again. We do have the registration link for our next workshop coming up on nativestartup.org/events. We'll post it everywhere again as well: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, our website. And if you have any other further questions or have any issues with any of those links or any questions with the time or how to get connected, you can send me an email at raquel@nativestartup.org, or you can send it to hello@nativestartup.org. I get both those emails. And then if you have any questions about Change Labs in general, our eShip Hub here, our ESS program that my colleague Holly Patterson and I co-lead here at Change Lab, or if you have questions about kinship lending or any of the other stuff that we have going on that you see on our social media, especially the NSBCI loan, that's a big question right now for a lot of folks. You can stop by here at the hub. You can send us an email. You can comment on any of our posts that we have on social media. Send us a message, and we will get all those answered questions, or all those questions answered for you. All those answered questions for you. Thank you all so much for being here. Let me check the chat one more time. Thank you, Jane. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Larry just dropped a link in there that y'all can check out, and then I can send that link along with our reminder when we had I'm sorry, when we had this presentation up on our YouTube channel. Bonnie, thank you. I'm not sure if Bonnie is still here. Yes, Bonnie, if you can send me an email, just to remind me really quickly, my email's here on the screen. And then Zane, same thing for you. Otherwise, I will probably just send it to everybody that has registered on here, and just to make sure that those who had to jump off early get access to that as well. So thank you all again so much. I hope you have a great day. Stay cool out there, stay safe, and we will see you hopefully next week. All right. Bye, guys.